Request all speakers to have their video on, please.
Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
YBS sir, we are live. Please go ahead.
Jaidev ji, you want me to start or you're starting?
Yeah. So I will start. So I am
Yeah.
Jaidev Sharma, Joint Director from ASSOCHAM. We are thankful to all panelists for accepting our request to join this significant webinar. The JS Subodh Kumar Singh ji will join us soon because he's some meeting. With this word, I will request YBR Shri YB Ramakrishnan ji to address and moderate the session. Over to you, YBR sir.
Thank you very much, Jaidev ji, and let me at the outset thank ASSOCHAM for having invited me to this particular session and also requesting me to share my views and moderate the session. We have three very distinguished panelists, who are going to be presenting their views on the ethanol blending program, and also we are going to have, Shri Subodh Kumar Singh ji, who's going to be the Joint Secretary DFPD later on as the guest of honor. Well, just to give some background, we all know that, as far as our energy needs are concerned, India has been a big importer of energy, and especially when it comes to fossil fuels, we import almost 85-86% of the total fossil, the crude oil that we consume in the country. So we have always been looking at becoming energy self-reliant or reducing our dependency on the imported fossil fuels. So, we have been talking about biofuel program for quite some time. Almost 2 decades ago, we started the mission on biodiesel by the then Planning Commission. And then as far as the ethanol blending program was concerned, it was for the first time in the recent past, was introduced during the period when Ram Naik ji was the petroleum minister way back in 2003, 2004. So we started with a target of doing 5% blending in 2003, 2004. It started in right earnest, but then as we moved on, the program really did not take off. In 2009, December, Government of India came up with a national policy on biofuel, with a target to do about 20% ethanol blending by 2017. Though it was a good target that was set by the government, there were not many programs which were really looking at achieving the kind of target that we had. So in 2014, when the Modi government took over, there was a review of the ethanol blending program. And to our surprise, we found that the blending that was happening was somewhere around 1.4% on a pan-India basis. So we started really looking at where we went wrong and what were the kind of hurdles that was really faced by the ethanol manufacturer as well as the oil marketing companies who had the responsibility to do this kind of blending. Then we figured out that there were several issues. The major issue was the kind of the pricing policy we had at that point of time. It was neither good for the ethanol producers, nor it was attractive for the oil marketing companies. So that was one. And then the ethanol, whether it was potable ethanol or rectified spirit, ultimately the state governments had total control on that, and there was a lot of restrictions on the movement within the state and in between the states. So in 2015, Government of India, constituted a working group on biofuel, and incidentally, I was requested to chair that. And then a biofuel cell was also created in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas to address some of these issues. So the working group did a lot of groundwork and kept making several suggestions to Government of India through Ministry of Petroleum. And one by one, many of these hurdles were removed. The first and the foremost was on the pricing. They made it into a regulatory kind of regime where year after year the pricing was decided, keeping in mind the availability of sugarcane molasses, and also giving a fair price to the ethanol manufacturers, and also a price where oil marketing companies would not lose much. And then the other issues like the movement of ethanol, the control of ethanol by the states, everything were addressed. And I think, by 2018, we had created all these kind of, we had done the groundwork by removing some of the hurdles. And another major issue was, the oil marketing companies were asked to invest heavily in creating the kind of infrastructure that was really required for ethanol blending, whether it was storage facilities or blending facilities at the depot levels. So those were some of the things that were done. And I think the 2018 biofuel policy was a kind of a game changer. So keeping in mind the kind of requirement that we had for ethanol for blending and meeting the kind of targets, the new targets were to do about 10% blending by 2012 and about 20% blending by 2030. So if you were to achieve that, the kind of molasses-based ethanol was inadequate. So the policy really looked into it, and then and keeping in mind the kind of flood that was there in the sugar industry and the kind of hurdles that they were facing, conversion of B molasses, C molasses, as well as the sugarcane juice, sugarcane syrup was allowed to be converted into ethanol. And then a whole lot of new feedstocks were also allowed. India being an agricultural society, we produce so much of food grains, and quite a bit of food grains were going waste. It was getting rotten, and then the broken grains were not, attracting good price in the market. So policy allowed conversion of the broken grains as well as rotten grains, and new feedstocks such as corn, sweet sorghum, cassava, sugar beet, etc., to be allowed to be converted into ethanol. And then in the first generation ethanol itself, one is working with the sugar industry and also working with the standalone distilleries which can use the new feedstock. And Government of India came up with the interest subvention schemes. And, we have quite a few, industries that have come up. Industries are they're in the process of being set up, and all the existing ethanol plants are also looking at working at their full capacity and also increasing their capacity to produce more ethanol. So, all these initiatives has really helped. And, today we are very confident that we will be able to achieve that 10% blending target that we have for 2022. I think 2021 we may end up at about 8.5 to 9% blending, and we're on track to achieve that 10% blending next year. In the meantime, we also took a lot of initiative with regard to second and third generation ethanol. We have so much of agricultural residues in the country. We looked very closely at the kind of conversion technologies that were prevalent in India and outside India. And a conscious decision was taken by the Ministry of Petroleum and Government of India to give a big push for second generation ethanol, that is the lignocellulosic ethanol. So the government took a decision to set up about 11, commercial plants, and then currently about 4 of them are being fast-tracked. And out of that, 3 of them are built with Prash technology and 1 with, the Fortum technology at this point of time. So I expect that all 3 or 4 of them would probably be commissioned in 2022, starting from May, June next year, going until December. All these plants are going to be commissioned. And once these technologies are demonstrated at this scale, and the kind of technology challenges that we have in scaling have been addressed, and also when we get a hold on the capex and operating expenses of the second generation ethanol, we have enough feedstock in this country, and where we will be able to put up any number of the second generation ethanol plants. And one other big initiative that India has also taken is that Indian Oil Corporation is setting up another plant converting the tail end gas from the refineries into ethanol. that is in Panipat, and the various tail-end gases which are being released into the atmosphere is going to be captured, and a technology what we know as gas fermentation. World's first such gas fermentation plant in a petroleum refinery is being set up to convert all those tail-end gases into ethanol. This is also expected to be commissioned by second or third quarter of next year. And I think all these initiatives that we have taken with regard to production of the ethanol from various different resources. And then the government has also directed oil marketing companies to give 100% offtake guarantees, and especially on the second and third generation advanced biofuels are concerned, government has also come up with a viability gap funding program to ensure that the high capex is not a burden on the investor. And then a new pricing policy for advanced biofuel is also in the annual. So all these kind of initiatives that we took gave the confidence that we may be able to achieve 20% blending much before 2030, and making taking a close look at where we stand. We thought that by 2025 itself we will be able to achieve this target. So all these initiatives have been taken, and I believe that by 2025 we would be almost on par with US and Brazil in the total amount of ethanol that we are going to be producing, or we may even overtake Brazil and United States. And then government is also looking at going beyond 20%, looking at a kind of an ecosystem that Brazil has, wherein Brazil is doing E27, and then you have E100 being sold side by side, and you have flexi engines. You have vehicles running on pure E100, and you have flexi engine vehicles running on anywhere between E0 to E100. So similar kind of an ecosystem is being looked into at this point of time in India. Once we reach E20, we will also have E100 being sold side by side, and the road transport minister has already directed the vehicle manufacturers in the country to rise up to this kind of expectation that the government of India has. Beyond E100, I think there are technologies which people like Praj and others who have been looking into taking the ethanol route for sustainable aviation fuel also. So that is another big market which is going to open up for ethanol as we move forward. And then there have been some initiative in looking at how ethanol could possibly be blended in diesel also, to whatever extent possible without any modification to the engine. In fact, when I was the chairman of the Karnataka State Biofuel Board, we ran 2,200 buses with 7.8% ethanol blended in diesel with excellent results. Now, Automobile Research Association of India has done some laboratory trials, and now they are also going to be doing some field trials very soon. And I think by the time we have enough ethanol in 2025, we could even think in terms of blending ethanol in diesel as we move forward. So there is a huge market opportunity that exists for ethanol, and the ethanol blending program is on track, and not only on track, we are advancing the targets that we are having. So I think we have already created a policy framework and created a kind of an ecosystem in the country, where the investment has started coming in. Government has been so proactive in the last 6-7 years, and the industry, I would say, was the slow starter. Now industry has really caught up with the kind of proactive initiatives of government. And as we move forward, I believe that this will be a very ambitious project of the country. Will be able to meet all kinds of vision and targets that we have set for ourselves. And this will also give us, apart from the energy security, this will be an excellent tool for rural development. Especially because most of the feedstock that is required has to be grown in rural areas, by farmers, and giving them a fair price would go a long way in doubling their income, which is one of the objectives of government of India. And of course, the environmental benefits that accrue to the society, I need not have to mention about it to this august audience that we have. So it's a three-pronged approach that the government has taken, three benefits. We are going to be looking at being self-reliant as far as the energy is concerned, then looking at this program as a tool for rural development and doubling the farmers' income, and also as an environment mitigation program. I see a lot of hope with this program as we move forward. And as I was mentioning earlier, we have three panelists here from the industry, and who will be able to throw a lot more light on what is happening. Where do we stand with regard to technologies? What are the new opportunities? And of course, as industry, any such program which is still in, I would still say it is still in its infancy. So we will still have a lot of, practical problems at the ground level. And these are some of the things I hope will be discussed during today's, webinar. Let me just move over to the today's speakers. We have, as I mentioned, three speakers. The first speaker of the day will be Dr. Ravindra Utkar. He is the Vice President of Praj Industries. Sir, you're most welcome. He's the Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Marketing at Praj Industries. He has more than 30 years of Indian and international experience as product and in product and project business. So his areas of interest are sales, marketing, business development, and strategy domain, working for various leading MNCs and now with Praj. So basically an electronics and telecommunication engineer. It's a rarity to find an electronics and telecommunication engineer getting into the bioenergy space. And incidentally, I'm an electronics engineer myself, sir. So we share something. Dr. Ravindra is also a doctorate in management from Pune University. So his research was on in the renewable energy area, looking at strategies for entry and growth in international market. I'm pretty sure that all your experience will help grow the business in India too. So over to you, Dr. Ravindra Utkar.
So before Ravindra sir start, so we welcome Sri Subodh Singh ji. He has just joined a few minutes back. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Ravindra. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's a nice feeling to be in this august company. My sincere compliments to ASSOCHAM for organizing this webinar, very timely one. No better person than YBR to address and set context, who has seen it all, been there, done that. Zeus has also joined, which is also fantastic news. And I'm sure deliberations today will go a long way in accelerating the growth of ethanol blending in India. With your permission, sir, can I share my screen?
Please go ahead.
Okay, can you see my screen well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Like I said, the timing couldn't have been any better. We are at the cusp of industry taking off, and I think all the endeavors like this go a long way in expanding the circle of influence, debusting the myths, giving people the right information, what the past has been, how the future is evolving. And I think Dr. Ramakrishnaji sir's address was very, very insightful in walking us through. My presentation I have structured in 4 modules. I will little bit talk about my company that I represent and what we do, how we do. Then we will see how ethanol blending is a game changer and growth enabler, whether it is social, environmental, economical, or energy aspects. We are going to talk about biomobility as the new age mobility, and we will look at some of the technology and policy perspectives. I think Ramakrishnan sir had already explained some of that. We'll have to quickly revisit. Then we'll also look at what lies ahead, what's in offing. So I think that's how I have structured my presentation. So the company I represent, Praj Industries, is been a pioneer in the field of industrial biotechnology. Almost 4 decades of presence in India, listed on stock exchanges. Clearly, engineering, procurement, construction solutions on the back of the innovative technology that we develop at our Praj Matrix R&D Center, which is known for over 300 patents. Started with sugary feedstock, eventually have added number of other capabilities to process number of other feedstocks. So I think that's what we say. The picture at the left hand side is a George Washington Carver Award, which is considered as the topmost honor in industrial biotechnology. It was bestowed to our founder chairman, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, who incidentally became the first Indian ever to receive this award, which is a great recognition of not just what Praj has been doing, but also a rich tribute to the prowess of India and India's growing technology advancements, and also the strides that India has been taking in the industrial biotechnology. Our company has been ranked as the best place to work in advanced bioeconomy, which considers few other elements in the bio sector as well, and considered as number 2 and number 3 hottest company in the advanced bioeconomy when it comes to renewable fuels, chemicals, biodesign, bioengineering. That's a little bit of an overview about our company. The company operates on the philosophy of R&D to D&D, which is research and development to design and deployment. So we have end-to-end capabilities from conceiving an idea, developing from a paper to a flask to a bench to a pilot to a commercial scale. We have been doing that repeatedly on numerous feedstocks, and we have all it takes to run through each end of the value chain, and we are even develop capabilities for the life cycle management. So that has been the philosophy of company operating in this space. Our global presence would mean that we have over 750 references across all 5 continents in over 75 countries. The murky list of clients operating in this space speak for themselves, and this list is only growing, the count is only growing. And this gives us great leverage because the best practices observed in other part of the world, the different feedstock that we come across in other part of the world, we bring back, we try to plow those grassroots learnings into the Indian scenario. So we are able to work on continuously improving the technical feasibility, commercial feasibility, capacity enhancements, sweating assets more, energy efficiency, conserving the water or utility footprint as a whole. So this global experience is not just to showcase that we are operating globally, but we are also bringing back all the knowledge, expertise that we work with global clients and keep improving our processes, systems, and technologies. The next slide talks about our core, which is about our partnerships. We believe that this is an era of collaboration and partnerships, and irrespective of which area, whether it is academics, market side, customer side, technology side, or working with different policymakers or different associations, Praj has been shoulder to shoulder with them to develop a sustainable ecosystem for the industry. So we are very proud of the partnership that we are able to have with various stakeholders across the value chain, and we believe that together we are here to make a difference and create a value for our customers and eventually make our country proud and self-sustainable on the energy domain. I mentioned about Praj Matrix, the R&D center, which is a backbone for Praj's growth for over 4 decades. It has 2-pronged strategy. One is to support existing business on continuously improving the throughput, efficiency, minimizing the energy footprint, water footprint, and giving customers value for their money. And on the other stream, continuously developing products ahead of the curve based on the stated market needs or unstated market needs, based on the various technologies, trends that are evolving, collaborating with various organizations around the world. And it's a home to over 90 scientists and doctorate technicians who are working overtime with over 300 plus patents in a cross-functional research domain. I think that's very important because the era belongs to a cross-functional research. And Ramakrishna sir already mentioned about me being electronics engineer, so we have to bring in the automation, digital technology to keep our industry also ahead of the curve. That is something which also we continuously work on. So I think the R&D is the right place for us to test our ideas, to develop them on a pilot scale, experiment them, continuously improving the quality, and also exploring various feedstocks. That's a little bit about our R&D center. Moving on, this is where we hit ethanol blending as a solution to numerous problems our country is facing, or the challenges our country is facing for growth. And these are stated, some of them are stated here, be it energy security, be it climate change issues, be it employment generation issues, be it outgo of foreign exchange, be it air pollution and related health hazards that we are talking. Recently released report by Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC, in this their 6th edition, said that we are doing very little as various nations to achieve the target of keeping global warming under control, or climate change under control. And they are urging that we need to take aggressive steps, investments, technologies in the clean tech space, in the green energy space, to be able to get anywhere close to actually combating or fighting the climate change. And that's where biofuels have a big role to play. So we are seeing ethanol blending as a game changer or enabler to actually reach out to various issues that we are facing, whether it is decarbonization, whether it is combating the climate change aspects, whether it is energy self-sufficiency, thereby reducing the foreign exchange outgo of our nation, whether it is, there's a big talk about energy security. We are now reading in newspapers today that the electricity crisis is hitting China like anything. And then they are forced to shut their factories, and their totally disruptions in supply, which is eventually threatening to affect the whole global supply chain. And I think this is where the important aspect about sustainable energy solutions, the energy solutions that are in sync with environment, come in, and that's where Praj is able to make a big difference. Our respected Honorable Prime Minister always speaks about the Antyodaya, or the bottom of the pyramid, which is ensuring that the last section, which is will get benefit of our development. And that is where we see the employment generation in the rural parts of the India. It's something which also ethanol blending can help achieve. So there are numerous socio-economical, environment and energy facets to ethanol blending, and we will see them eventually in the presentation and even in today's panel discussion. So if we quickly look back on the energy side, the graph shows our imports on oil and imports on gas and also the consumption patterns. And clearly these are past trends. And we are already seeing the V-shaped recovery post-pandemic, and which only means that our GDP is rising, and to fuel the GDP growth, we need to have more and more energy requirement. And on one hand, we have more energy requirement to meet our growth ambitions. On the other hand, we have more reliance on imported sources of fossil fuels. And we have to therefore work extra hard to make sure that we have our captive resources leveraged. And clearly, after the industry, automobile sector is seen as the second largest consumer of energy. And catching this automobile sector pulse, we also see that it is also on the growth path, often considered as a barometer for the economy, because transportation is a great thing. It actually connects the generation and consumption ends, and the role of automobile sector in the growth of any nation can't be undermined. Be it road transport, be it marine transport, be it aviation transport, India is poised to leapfrog and actually become the 4th largest automobile industry in the world. And Ramakrishna sir already mentioned about sustainable aviation fuel, which is to the aviation sector. And we are also seeing ahead of the curve the opportunities opening us for biomarine fuel. So there is a lot of opportunity for the biofuels to play a role in not only road transport, aviation sector, but also on the marine or sea transport. So this just spells that we need to step up our activities, because as just spoken a while back, automobile industry is second largest consumer of energy and also second largest emitter of greenhouse gases or carbon footprint. So if we were to curb carbon footprints, it is imperative that we need to harness biofuels. You know, carbon emissions is because basically all the crude oil is beneath the earth's surface. So we are actually extracting the fossil fuels, consuming them, and actually that results in increased carbon footprint or emissions or greenhouse gas emission. So on the contrary, biofuels, which is actually a source from carbohydrates, which plants absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and plants goods services, fuels made from bio resources when consumed emit carbon dioxide. So on one hand, plants absorb carbon dioxide. On the other hand, goods, products made from plants when consumed emit carbon dioxide. So we are in a way creating a carbon neutral cycle, which is little bit known as a circular bioeconomy. So if we harness more and more of biofuels, what we will do is we will take away to that extent, the additional usage of fossil fuels and additional corresponding carbon emissions of fossil fuel. So biofuels will actually help keeping the carbon levels below the requirement. And now we are all watching and listening on the television media and also reading in the news media that there is a big race to zero campaign that is drumming up ahead of the COP26 climate change summit in Glasgow later this year in a month's time or so. So all nations are required to declare the carbon neutrality targets. Even China has said that they would like to become carbon neutral by 2060. And India is yet to announce the target. So if we were to achieve carbon neutrality, biofuels have an unprecedented role to play. That's the point I wanted to emphasize. So what we are saying is we are looking at an era of having a low carbon emission fuel that will drive the mobility solutions in times to come. And that's where the biomobility comes into the play. Now, biomobility is actually denotes the biofuel production technologies for making low carbon renewable transportation fuel made from biological resources. And you can see the green band is comprising of the advanced biofuels on the top. At the same time, the yellow band, which is actually the established biofuels that we have. So the more and more usage of biofuels will actually take us on a path of energy self-reliance, will also take on a path of carbon neutrality, will also take us on a path of creating employment in the rural areas, which is also need of the hour, and which obviously helps us mitigate and combat the evils of climate change. Clearly, biofuels or biomobility is the way to move forward. And then, you know, biomobility can be achieved through the expertise in processing number of feedstocks, be it sugary feedstocks, be it starchy feedstock, lignocellulosic feedstock, or even the other type of waste. We call it waste to wealth. And there are numerous technologies that Praj has developed, and actually the world-class R&D center that we have, and they give us to the product that we devise from processing those feedstocks. So it's a feedstock technology and product expertise that Praj has developed that is going to drive the biofuels, which will drive what we call as a bioeconomy, which is going to be the increasing part in the mainstreaming of economy. Although the audience is very elite, some of the new participants in the whole sector may not be familiar with all the feedstocks, and that's why there is a pictorial representation on the right side. This is how the feedstocks are, and when they undergo the fermentation, distillation, dehydration, processing, we get fantastic biofuels which actually helps solve numerous issues. Ramakrishna sir already mentioned the policy evolution starting with Ramnaik ji era, the beginning of this millennium, and this is how the whole industry has progressed. Fantastic interventions, strategic interventions based on the stated needs, unstated needs, global trends, cherry picking the best that is possible for Indian industry, and which has been a great growth driver for ethanol blending program. And there are numerous flagship programs announced by the government, and this ethanol blending program complements all of those. And we are also seeing, because of that, the role of farmer is moving, transitioning from Annadata to Urja Data, a famous slogan MOPNG has come out with. So I think what we are seeing is Atmanirbharta, doubling farmers' income, aligned with the United Nations stated goals for sustainability. Clearly, Make in India gets benefited because we want to achieve the energy self-reliance, so our local manufacturing will get boost. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan also comes into the play. So there are a number of elements that are brought together by very, very progressive and very, very advanced, forward-looking strategic policy interventions by the government of India. And this is the roadmap that talks about it. And then what the next slide tells is a slide which is very interesting technology perspective. All of us are familiar with the classical crude oil refinery, where you extract the crude oil, do a distillation and fractionation, and then you get a number of products that are we all are consuming. Now we are transitioning to era from carbohydrates to hydrocarbons. Like I said, from energy that is fossil fuel driven to energy that is renewable driven, and that benefits in all aspects. So what we call as a biocrude, which comes in various forms, as can be seen here, and again undergoes chemical and thermochemical and biological processing. And then what we have is a classical integrated biorefinery, where we have a number of products that are coming out, which are in the form of fuels, chemicals, which have potential to substitute, if not replace, but actually they definitely can complement today's materials, today's fuels. So I think we are going to see going forward a transition of energy from hydrocarbons to carbohydrates, which is also symbolizes the mainstreaming of bioeconomy and the big role that biofuels have to play in it. So we are clearly seeing economical, societal, and ecological progress by such transition. Next slide actually quickly talks about the mobility, how it's going to progress. If we map the 4 parameters, environment, economy, employment, and empowerment, on each of the mobility sources, which is a conventional mobility based on the fossil fuels on the left hand side, and to the extreme right hand side we have an electric mobility, which is also being big talked about. There is a great push to electric mobility, and what we are seeing here is a biomobility in the middle. So if you compare on all 4 parameters, biomobility ticks all the boxes. It is environment friendly. Of course, e-mobility is environment friendly as long as the electricity on which the charging happens is renewable. Given India's today's energy canvas or energy portfolio, we are heavily dependent on fossil fuels. About 70 to 80% we are dependent on coal and oil and fossil resources for electricity generation. When the renewable energy actually takes over in a big way, then even e-mobility will tick that box. So e-mobility is environment friendly as long as the electricity is derived from renewable sources. It certainly benefits economy because we are leveraging our captive resources, creating captive jobs, conserving foreign exchange, helping reduce the current account deficit, helping strengthen the Indian rupee to a dollar. That is not possible with conventional mobility because we are dependent on imported resources. On the electric mobility, even today, many of the technologies, many of the batteries and many of the things are still imported, although scenario is fast changing. So we'll see going forward e-mobility becoming more economically feasible for our nation. Clearly, employment is a big issue for India because we have a huge demographic dividend, and that can turn into our strategic advantage or nightmare depending on how we are able to harness it. And for that employment generation, today we have millions of people working on the conventional mobility side in terms of existing internal combustion engines, automobile industry, auto component industry, existing fuel dispensing infrastructure, and so on. And which actually biofuels complement because they work in tandem with conventional mobility. The minute we move to e-mobility, the number of parts go down, dispensing infrastructure will change. So all that would have a radical impact on the existing supply chains of the automobile industry.
Dr. Ravindra, can you conclude in about a minute's time?
Automobile industry, auto component industry. So we have some concerns over the employment generation. And clearly empowerment is one thing where, like I said, creating the employment and source of revenue at the bottom of the pyramid, Antyodaya, as our Prime Minister calls it. If our farmers or rural youth get empowered, find the source of sustainable livelihood, probably the consumption cycle will kick in and it will be a more sustainable way. The point I want to make here is biofuels, ethanol works perfectly well with conventional mobility by way of blending, and it also works perfectly well with the e-mobility by way of hybrid vehicles. And even going forward, there are flex fuel engines where actually it's poised to make a frog leap and pole vault in consumption. And then clearly, we are seeing that since the interventions, strategic interventions by this government, the graph for ethanol blending is on the rise. And last year we are hitting around 8%, which is a great news. And clearly the wheel shown here shows multiple facets of how progress has been achieved socially, economically, environmentally. So I think the ethanol blending program as of now is going steady and going to only get accelerated by way of the focus that it is getting, which is a great news for the nation. And sorry,
Dr. Ravindra, you need to conclude. You need to conclude.
Just the last two slides. So I just put in a scenario here that on one column you have various feedstocks and their availability, and then if those all feedstocks and their availability is harnessed, then we have a great opportunity to produce ethanol, and that would mean that we will have a big impact in greenhouse gas reductions, employment, farmers, and also cumulated forex saving. And all this means that our industry would see an investment in excess of $100 billion. So this is just a potential waiting to be harnessed. And last slide actually tells how the ethanol blending program helps connect with the big picture, which has already been spoken about society, economy, environment, whether it is nationally determined contributions, climate change summit things, United Nations sustainability goal, and so on and so forth. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your patient listening and the time allocated to me and inviting me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravindra. It was a very elaborate presentation. I think you will stay back. We may have a few questions, and then we would come back to the questions session later on.
Sure.
Without wasting any more time, our next speaker would be Dr. Sangeeta Srivatsavaji. She's the Executive Director at Godavari Refineries. She has more than 25 years of association managing and directing the research activities connected with renewable feedstocks in Godavari Refineries. And she's been the head of chemical business unit. She has an MSc in organic chemistry, MPhil, and doctorate in chemistry. Dr. Sangeeta ji, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Organizer, can I get a right for sharing my presentation? Yeah, thank you. So, just a minute. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, organizer, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this forum. And I can only express this is the right time and the right place where we're discussing. But my job is easy now because Sir YBR has already given the summary of biofuel program and what is there in ethanol blending. And also Dr. Ravindra has given whatever different technologies or whatever ways. So for me, it's very like simple now. I can very well see. But for me, I'm talking from the manufacturer point of view, where we have seen this industry from maybe, for me, it is almost 27, 28 years I've been here, and we as Godavari have been supplying ethanol for various applications from the beginning, and now we are supplying for biofuel program. So for us, if we see maybe 20 years back, whenever we attended any kind of conferences and presentation, it used to be told that ethanol is a sunset industry, but we did not believe in that, and we believed in ourselves, and probably we went on making ethanol, we went on producing and even expanding. Now, as I look back, ethanol was always as part of chemicals for us. We make many chemicals from ethanol. And today, when sir said that industry was slow, sir, I must also express my view as like, yes, industry is always working with the government, because we can't be working separately. Our paths are together, and we're walking on the same path, and we can't move faster if we don't walk together. So that's my statement for your statement. And now I'll just make my presentation. So a lot of this has been already said about the ethanol blending program. So when I read the policy completely, I feel it's like in maybe 75 or maybe 100 days, the team has done a marvelous job. They put in everything which is possible for making this happen. And it is just converting into a roadmap and the activity chart, and then you're there. So like it's biofuel policy, which was announced on World Biofuel Day. It is actually a very well documented piece of policy. And as we know why it is important, it is basically energy security for the country and increasing the farmer income. And another point, which is enhancing the optionality for the sugar mills and mitigating the climate change. So for all of this, energy security for the country is kind of a prime driver. Probably it's very important for all of us, and it is helping. We have seen a lot of data being presented by Dr. Ravindra, how it has helped, and it is kind of also enhancing optionality is one thing which I wanted to emphasize. Is basically today, if you look at all the mills which are producing sugar and also ethanol, we are dependent on season. So we are seasonal industry. So basically we have a lot of time which is not being utilized, and the factories assets have to be looked at. So once we get into different feedstocks, like we have, other than molasses, juice, syrup, which has increased the number of years we can operate. And adding grain also increases optionality for us, so that we are able to utilize the number of days available, which is, I have infrastructure, we have manpower, we have also now feedstock. So we run for many number of days. And anyway, biofuel program helps us for mitigating climate change. We have already seen how it is helping us to reach our carbon neutral goal. So I think this slide I can very well skip, but since I have put in here, I will just go through, because we've already discussed about some of the salient feature, or it has included various feedstock. It has included lignocellulosic biomass, and also grain has been included. So this gives us the optionality, and also it has 2G is something which is coming up, and Dr. YBR sir has already explained. There are a lot of technologies are being implemented. A lot of plants are coming up with incentives, and government has also given some different prices, which are probably yet to be announced. And we are also watching how very closely the developments of 2G ethanol, because we're in the space of 1G already, and for us, very well like transition will be for 2G. We have the biomass at site, We have infrastructure at site. So this is a very natural transition for us. So we have already seen this policy covers a very well role and responsibility. Various stakeholders, right from the manufacturer to the end users to automobile and whoever could be part is being like roped in this policy, and that's now expected benefit, which I could think of as like additional income for farmer, which we've seen it, employment generation, forex saving, and investment in rural economy, because now all these things will happen in a place where feedstock is available, which is normally in rural India. Probably we'll be able to see different developments pan-India, and we'll have cleaner environment, and it will also help the society. So now we are like achieving for 20% blend by 2025 looks very possible looking at the current scenario. So if you look at globally, the growth driver for any ethanol production or any ethanol blending program is like demand enrichment. So now government mandate has already been, created this demand enrichment. We have to target 20%. So there is something which is already been created. We don't have to worry about the market. We have some price policies in place. We have the market in place. So there's supply enrichment. That's the place where government has allowed us to use different feedstock, which makes us our feedstock availability a little bit more wider, and we can utilize our assets for manpower and existing infrastructure to augment current biorefineries to the best of its capacity. Then there are incentives promoting the use of higher ethanol blend throughout the price incentives like tax relief and other things for the vehicles. Now, globally, it is E20 to E85. I think Soviets right now stopping at E20, and probably we will be also targeting at E100 as the Brazilian model, which is right now looked at by us to be followed in future. So prime driver for fuel ethanol policies, reducing the import bill, double the farmers. So this is summary, reducing GHG emission, which has been also analyzed by various agencies on now constraint. It's not constraint. Basically, what we can look at a little differently is like long-term uptake by OMCs, because right now we are going for yearly contract. We don't know what's going to happen, or sorry, quarterly contract. Whenever tender comes, we need to probably look at some different ways of doing it in long term. And molasses availability is very, very less now because we have various other applications for ethanol. So we have to also look at how do we supplement, which and how do we get the access to these damaged food grains, excess rice a lot. Because if you're going to buy the grain in the market, which is at 18 rupees to 20 rupees, it's not going to make it very well, because the price of these ethanol are not so well. So probably we need to look at that a little bit more carefully. And diversion of ethanol towards beverage and potable industry is always there. So this is also part. So we must consider whenever we are talking about increasing our production that there will be a different application of ethanol, which is for even chemicals, because India is net importer of ethanol as of date. So we must look at that also, because it is important. All chemicals and other sector is equally important. So while we are doing bioethanol, we must also keep in mind that we have alternate use of ethanol in the country. Now, ethanol in India, so recent update again is 20% going by 2030. Now, we've already achieved almost 10%, 8 and some percent in the current year. Raw materials have been already taken care of, and premium on the ethanol, different prices are already being provided. So, but if you look at the end, the highest ethanol supply in 2021, the requirement was 429 crore liter, but actual supply till September, which we got some data, is around 223. So we still have a lot of things to do. We've done a lot, but significant amount of work still needs to be done to increase this requirement. Just to summarize, and like, what is GBL commitment towards EBP program? So it's like if we look at in 2018 and 19, we were supplying a very small portion, it's like to blending program, and now in 2021, we will be supplying almost, we will be diverting about 35% cane for ethanol production. So if I go beyond 18, 19, my cane was completely used for making sugar. Only the molasses was used for making ethanol, which was used for various other applications. Now, from 1819, we started diverting our sugar into ethanol production, and now we've reached to almost 35% in 2021. And this we plan to increase year by year. But for this, we also have to expand our sugar capacity, which will be doing milling capacity, and then diversion will be going on. So this will basically be looking at adopting the Brazilian model of sugar and ethanol production. So like very closely monitoring how we can adopt direct juice use, direct syrup use, and how do you take care of cyclic nature of sugar cane so that you have feedstock available for longer duration and then your distillery runs for longer time. And then we also add another feedstock, which would be grain and maybe 2G in future. So that's where we are looking at expansion plans. And currently, we supply around 1.7% total required of 10% OMC blend in OMCs. We have very good network. I must say that all the oil companies, the tender process and everything is like has become so smooth. If we go and see like last 4 or 5 years transition, it has started like very well documented things, and we are able to adopt to like applying for tenders, supplying the material to different the go downs and stocks. But only thing is like during COVID, we had some challenges, which was also discussed, and then we kind of are overcoming slowly. But it is kind of a smooth work with the oil company and the manufacturer as of now. So this channel is working very beautifully. And so excess sugar is being diverted for ethanol production as it is done in Brazil. So way to increase, we've already discussed that excess sugar to ethanol, which is being already done based on the policies. And 2G is one thing which has been seen. Let's see when the first 2G production starts. A lot of plans are already there as discussed by BR sir. But we are, we as industry are keeping close watch on the technologies. We are exploring it. Only thing which we feel is as an industry that bolt-on 2G should be looked at. I think that is also, sir said that they're also considering that, because a greenfield 2G ethanol production is kind of a very, very capital. So capex for that is very high. So we must look at bolt-on 2G, because our current distilleries are also not utilized completely, like 330 days. So we can look at the utilization of existing facility. Then a grain is also being added. So we are also converting our, in the current season, I think we are one of the largest supplier of biofuel using juice, syrup, and B-heavy. And next year onwards, we'll also be adding on grain. And then 2G is also there on our stream, but we are also like exploring various technologies, because this is still a very capex and opex intensive. So we need to really be very watchful on the capex and opex of these two technologies. And we are. So again, I think lower GST on the fuel has helped us, and we've got financial assistance also. We also, like sir said, that bolt-on financial assistance has been already considered, but I'm not aware of that. So that'll be very good to know about if we are able to get financial assistance for bolt-on models also. So soft loan on 1G we already like availing. So that's industry is very, very thankful for all the policies and document procedures which are being laid by the government of India, and for DFPD has been very cooperative for us to get the support. And now what we feel is like, okay, so we have the policy in place, we have the technology, we have the infrastructure which can be taken. Now, what about the readiness of automotive sector? Because once we start producing, we start supplying to oil companies, and then if it is E20, are we ready for E20 vehicles? Now, here we also look at that we should also talk about flexi fuel vehicles, which can take right from E20 to E100 in future, because we cannot stop once we start investing in our ethanol production. It will be increasing and we'll have excess sugar produced, which has to be diverted. We'll have excess feedstocks available, which has to be converted to ethanol. Then we need to be ready with flexi fuel vehicles to adopt the fuel available. And then ethanol end applications also have to be kept in mind that molasses also can be used for fuel ethanol. Grain is already used for beverage industry probably. So when we are talking about biofuel, we have to be a little bit mindful that we have other applications in place. And as I also mentioned earlier, that long-term pricing and uptake of OMC is very, very critical for us to look at how we want to grow and see our future. And storage infrastructure should be increased, because sometimes it happens that you are just stuck because you cannot transport because storage is full, our tankers are standing for a long time. So these are the small things which we need to really look at carefully. And it is not that everybody is like kind of considering these aspects. So maybe retail sales can be permitted in the future. So to sum up, I think what I would look at overall is we must look at flexi fuel automobile to be ready. These are things which are like, I thought, which are beyond the biofuel policy document, which has already come up, because it has everything. Because when I went on reading, I couldn't find anything which is like not there. We have put in all the things. Even flexi fuel automobile to be ready is there, but it talks about maybe automobile industry right now says if they invest in this flexi fuel automobile and the ethanol blending does not happen, then what? So probably it is kind of who takes the first step. So we have to be kind of ready and completely, so that ethanol is available and we have the vehicle which can take flexi fuel. If it is 20%, 30% or whatever percentage available, or somebody wants 100%, can have the arrangement for those people. Bolt-on 2G should be considered for making it way forward. And then we have to come back to the increasing yield of biomass, because once we reach to a saturation level where we have used 20% and we want to target 100%, we actually need to look at what else can be done with our limited farmland which are available. How do we improve the yield of biomass per acre? How do we look at our soil health? Various aspects can be tackled. So probably maybe some agricultural universities or something can be roped in to look at those areas, which will help us from reaching from E20 to E100. And that's it probably. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sangeeta ji, and that was a wonderful presentation. Though you were saying that these are some of the views of Godavari refineries, and I'm pretty sure that the industry also has similar views. All the ethanol manufacturers have very similar views. So I think we will move on to the next speaker. We have the next speaker, Mr. Amit Sachdev. He is the regional consultant South Asia for U.S. Grain Council. And U.S. Grain Council is a non-profit organization, promotes use of barley, corn, and sweet sorghum that has been grown in U.S. worldwide. They work with end users and policymakers. They update end users with updates on U.S. commodity prices and actual values for import of grains. And we have Amit Sachdev, who is a bachelor, in technology from G.B. Pant University in agriculture and technology, agriculture and animal husbandry. And he has a lot of working experience, farm and poultry training from Europe. So over to you, Mr. Amit Sachdev.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramakrishna. First of all, thanks to ASSOCHAM for giving me this opportunity to talk to this August gathering here. My predecessors have talked about what is happening in India, they've talked about the challenges. Dr. Ravindra and Dr. Sangeeta have made my presentation a little easier. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the US experience and also the Filipino experience, what we have studied. But I believe that there is very much an opportunity for biofuels use in India. So first of all, I think it's important to applaud Government of India, Niti Aayog, on the new roadmap to get to the E20 blend mandate by 2023 and completed by 2025. I think it's also important to learn from other countries which have moved forward. If India wants to move forward and to achieve its goals of E20 at a fast pace. So I'm going to talk about, as I said, the US experience, especially on the octane for modern cars and the cost savings that happens at the pump head. The other countries, as I said, the Filipino model. In India, we'll talk about the India's ethanol current production and the what is being used. The other thing everybody is talking about is the grain. We will talk more about the current corn demand and supply. On the ethanol side, I think we have seen a commitment from the US government. Earlier also, Mr. Biden, when he was in 2006, during the Obama administration, and now when he is the president, talking about net zero by 2035 and to move forward. Biofuels remains the top priority of the government, even though we are talking about EVs and everything else. Advantages that ethanol carries are many. I have only listed a few. Lower emissions than gasoline, reduced toxins, no initial cost for the fleets. If you are moving into an E10, E15 blend, it can work with the existing infrastructure, decrease the fuel cost, as I said, higher octane, and it reduces the dependence on imports. There are very many other advantages, especially on the lower carbon intensity of the ethanol that we are working with currently. But as I said earlier, ethanol has a higher octane at this point of time. So in the US, what normally is done, a lower gasoline blend stock is made, which is at 84 octane. As you can see here, the ethanol, which is currently being used, has an 114. And when this is blended at 10% or 15%, it increases the total octane, which is what is required at the pump head. And what also it eliminates the current carcinogens known as the BTX aromatics, which is benzene, toluene, xylene. MTBE has also been banned. Methanol, as most of the people are talking about, we will be able to use methanol, but methanol again is not approved by many of the automakers. Ethanol, as we blend ethanol, it could add up to 5 octane points, and that's the reason why US refiners are using it across the board. As I said, 84 is made. It adds about 10%, and then it reaches the final octane of 87 or 88 at the end, at the pump head. That's what the consumer gets. 88 from E15, E10 actually, which is the blend which is sold across the country. So also there is E15 that is available. There's E30 that is available as well. But apart from being a competitively priced source of octane, there are additional benefits also to ethanol, which is it can dilute the benzene, which is already there, and also the sulfur content. It increases the volume and reduces the greenhouse gas emissions. The current production of ethanol in the US is about 60.48 billion liters, and US uses about 54.8 billion liters at this point of time. And as I said earlier, 98% of the gasoline that is sold in country is 10%. That means every drop of ethanol, every drop of gasoline that gets sold has at least 10%. But, and this is the current pricing. This is the current pricing of E0. The green dots show you, the light green dots show you E10, E15 is the maroon dot. So as the ethanol gets blended into gasoline, the prices continue to drop. E85, of course, is the cheapest blend that is available, but again, it is the consumer's choice. When we look at the current availability, as I said, E10 is across the country. There are about 2,501 sites which currently sell E15 as well, and there are about 5,148 sites that also sell higher blends, which is E30 or E50 and E85. E30 to E85 primarily is flex fuel for flex fuel vehicles. There is a bright future for ethanol. I think I can cite very clearly the annual Energy Outlook 2021 by EIA, which says the IC engines will remain in the forefront. Liquid fuels will dominate, and ethanol will be a bonus in this equation because of its inherent properties. So IC engines, internal combustion engines, are not going anywhere. Wherever we are looking at EVs or other alternate fuels, they will remain part of the solution, and the internal combustion engines are going to be here for long. On the ethanol blending side, the map that you see here is sourced from SGS. What it shows are the global regulatory limits at this point of time. So what you will also see that India has these separated ethanol blending specifications for E10, E12, E15, E20, and E85. China has E5, E10, Japan E5, E10, and these are all regulatory limits. In reality, in China, E10 at this point of time is 9.18%, but again, in China, it's not across the country. Only few municipalities have E10. In India, it's E10, but again, it's not across the country. At this point of time, we have about 8% blending, but it is in between. Somewhere you will have E0 and somewhere E10, and I'll share some more details later in the presentation. Philippines is a model that I wanted to discuss. The act is similar, what we have done for India. The Biofuels Act of 2006 very clearly indicates that Philippines wants to use indigenous supplies, wants to get into the sustainable clean energy, mitigate toxic and gases from the system, rural employment, income, reduce the foreign exchange outflow, and has provided incentives. I think what is additional to Philippines is that it has enforced the mandate. If E10 has been set as a mandate, it has enforced that mandate way back in 2006, and it allowed imported ethanol to fulfill the deficit, only the deficit, to reduce the overall cost of the biofuels and the gasoline that gets blended in the country. The current imports account for 50% of the demand volume. Even though they are producing domestic, imports are allowed and it moves ahead. So it's not that only Philippines. Same thing is happening also in Brazil and also in the US. As US started its blending program, the imports were allowed. It's not, Philippines was not the only country. Brazil also did the same thing. US did the same thing as it started. Even for E20, as it moves forward, for E20 blend mandate, imported ethanol has been set to complement the local projected supplies. As I said again, it is the enforceable mandate that works. If E10 has to be set, E10 everywhere, E10 should be available. Now, looking at the India ethanol story, Vabi sir did talk about 10%. Yes, we have 10%, but the current situation is there is a huge variability. It's either 10% or 0%. Even though we talk about an average of 8%, when we look at the states, we look at some states where we have good production, for example, Maharashtra or Uttar Pradesh, where close to E10 is available, but then other states, we don't have the ethanol available. So what you see is the gray line gives you the state level ethanol blend availability. On the actual supplies, as on 19th of September, this data comes to me from Bharat Petroleum. While all new varieties, new materials were allowed, when you look at the monthly supplies from B-heavy molasses, yes, the B-heavy molasses continues to increase on a month-to-month basis. No doubt about it. But come September, it has come down drastically. And then we have the grain-based ethanol, which is becoming available at this point of time. Damaged grains and damaged rice ethanol that has become available to us. Current supply of ethanol via grains is about 11%. The target that has been set by Government of India is about 40%. And the two grains that have been segregated or put aside for supplies would be corn and rice. I am going to talk mostly about corn. Now, this is moving on to the E20. We believe even when moving on to E20, we would see some kind of a shortfall moving forward. So those shortfalls are going to remain. Now, as I said, corn demand and supply, our current demand for corn in country is about 24 to 25 million tons. Our current production as per trade estimates is about 25 million tons. There is no surplus of corn at this point of time. As we move forward from 22, 25, 26, our demand for corn in country is going to increase to about 30 million tons. Will this increase? Our total supplies will increase. We'll have to move, we'll have to increase the capacity to produce more grain if we really want to move corn for ethanol production. So this is how our production has been over the years. The corn demand is increasing at about 10% per year. So either the corn production increases much faster. What you see here is the corn production by Government of India, and the green line is the estimate. Just a linear progression. Would this increase? But we believe that this demand is going to increase much faster in coming years. The price. Somebody did mention in the chat box that the current price of corn in India currently is about 20 rupees. Absolutely right. And you look at Bihar, for example, the yellow line here is Gulab Bagh, Bihar, which is at 19 rupees. Corn delivered at any other location from Bihar is about 22 rupees today. At that price, it is very difficult to convert this corn into ethanol for consumption for the industry. Either the prices have to be increased. Will that be feasible? Will we be able to pass on that differential of lower priced gasoline that the world is talking about to the Indian consumers? I don't think so. And poultry industry is the main consumer of corn. Currently, the CAGR for the poultry industry is about 15%. Starch industry is the second largest consumer at about 5 million tons per year. The CAGR of about 10%. And these industries are increasing much faster. So while the Niti Aayog, Government of India roadmap is very clear, we believe that there are still challenges. The state controls on the sale and movement of fuel grade ethanol. Sugar mills are still unable to move ethanol from one state to the other. While we agree that there has been some clear demarcation and some states have allowed this, but not everyone. Approvals and financial assistance is still slow. Tripartite agreements between the producer, bank, and buyers is not happening. Limited raw material availability in many states, special reference to Tamil Nadu. OMCs are unable to make that lower octane product. Currently, we still have that 91 octane product made at the refinery, ethanol added on top. So ultimately, what is being sold into the market is a 93.4 octane. And that's a loss for the refinery. If we are able to make a lower grade octane product, as is done around the world, I think the refineries also will be able to make money out of this. Limited raw material and diverse uses of ethanol. I think that's also very important. Dr. Sangeeta did mention cyclic nature of cane production. And that is one reason why I think we moved on and added new raw materials. But then there are other uses of ethanol as well. There is potable ethanol and there is ethanol that is required for chemical purposes as well. So role of US-India partnership. In the most recent case, you have the Biofuels Task Force that has been set up under the US-India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership. This is a collaboration between Department of Energy and the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, which will expand the use of clean energy technologies to decarbonize the energy sector. US Grains Council has been working in this sector and will continue to work in India with the various stakeholders in India to bring the learnings from around the world. I think this is an important piece, and US Grains Council is committed to be part of this industry. And we are here in India. We have our regional director who is in Singapore. I'm here in India, and we have Nantara Pandey, who is a marketing specialist. These are our emails, and please connect with us whenever you need more information on ethanol. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amit ji, and for that wonderful presentation and addressing some of the gaps and how that gaps in the ethanol blending program can be addressed through import from US or opening up the import from any other country for that matter. Now, I think we have Shri Subodh Kumar Singh ji, who is an IAS officer. He's a joint secretary in DFPD, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution. He's the 1997 IAS batch from Chhattisgarh. Subodh ji, we are very keen to hear from you. And I was just going through some of the questions that have been posed, and I see that there are 2-3 questions which are. I think you are the only right person to address a couple of these questions that are there. Maybe I will read those questions out or bring it up so that in your presentation you can cover that. The first one is with regard to the pricing on the grain-based ethanol. So people are asking for parity with bee molasses. Otherwise, it will be impossible for them to produce ethanol with the grain price of 20 and above. And that's what was also pointed out by the earlier speaker. And the second is on the interest subvention scheme, where they're saying that DFPD has been quite good in extending the inter-subvention scheme. So this has been currently extended to both serious and non-serious players. So they think that the window should open up. And there is another question wherein very clearly they say that OMC has come up with a criteria for pre-qualification of ethanol suppliers. Whoever has been pre-qualified by the OMCs should automatically get the inter-subvention scheme granted. So these are some of the issues. I'm pretty sure that you would be covering all this, but I just wanted to make sure that this is brought up to you. Over to you, Sri Subodh Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Ramkrishnan. Good afternoon, everyone. I thank ASSOCHAM for organizing this webinar on a very important topic, that ethanol blending in India, and thank ASSOCHAM for inviting me in this session. So, as I said, this is a very important topic because this ethanol blending program is a very important program that has multiple benefits, and it was launched in 2003. And the benefits, which is like country becoming in the direction of energy security and Atmanirbhar in petroleum sector, then boosting the farmers' income, that will help in doubling the farmers' income. It will reduce the environmental pollution because of the lesser emission of CO and hydrocarbons. And this investment in the distilleries will, like about 40,000 crore investment will come in the distillation sector, and this will provide huge employment opportunities and investment opportunities in the country. So these are the important benefits. And of course, about when we go for 20% blending, about 1,000 crore liter ethanol will be required, and 350 crore ethanol will be required. 1,000 crore for blending purpose and 350 crore around for other uses. So total requirement of ethanol that will utilize about 165 lakh ton of food grains. So this will give about 30,000 crore in additional income to the farmers. And this will also help in diverting 60 lakh ton of surplus sugar towards ethanol. So that will also solve the problem of sugar sector, and sugar mills will be able to pay sugarcane farmers in time. So these are the important benefits. And if we see from 2003, it was launched in 2003, but 2003 to 14, the progress was not much good because the policies were not permanent type of ad hoc policies and unstable policies, we can say. And due to that, up to 2014, only 38 crore liter was supplied in 2014, and the blending was 1.5%. Then many initiatives were taken by the government of India regarding the fixing ethanol pricing, and the ethanol prices are now fixed on the basis of the raw material prices. It doesn't have any linkage with the crude oil prices. So the one question which was flagged regarding the ethanol price revision. So every year we revise the price on the basis of the raw material price. So like if in case of sugar sector, if price of sugar cane has been increased, then obviously ethanol prices will be also revised upwards. Likewise, in food grains also, the food grain the cost of the prices of the food grains are increasing in the trend, then the ethanol prices from food grain will also increase. So this is one, and it is announced before every ethanol year. So ethanol year will start from 1st December. Before that, the prices will be revised. So that is one. Then we have like reduced this excise, duty, different duties. Then GST was reduced, and excise duty was waived, in fact, on this ethanol. Then movement of ethanol was relaxed, and the Industry Development and Regulation Act was amended, that this ethanol was out of the purview of the state governments, which is like mainly controlling the potable liquor. Then biofuel policy in 2018 was announced. Then in that policy, the other feedstocks other than C molasses were introduced, like this B-heavy molasses, sugarcane juice, and then damaged food grains, and of course food grains like maize and rice, surplus food grains. So these were the provision was made for this. Then the tendering process and so many procedural things were relaxed and simplified by the various ministries. Environmental ministry has simplified the environmental clearances for because the capacity has to be increased. Earlier, there was always a blame that the supply is not there, and automobile manufacturers, industry says that there is not enough supply. So we had just tapped all the points that how to increase the supply and how to increase the capacity. So all the interventions which were required for increasing the capacity those were taken, and the environmental ministry has exempted all the grain-based plants and expansion plants from the public hearing, and a lot of time which used to take around 1 year for EC, now you can get EC for the grain-based distilleries and expansion projects only in 2 to 3 months time. Likewise, the Ministry of Road Transport, they have also issued notifications for technical notifications for various type of fuel, E20, E85, E100, and they are in the process of finalizing the standards for E12 and E15 also. Likewise, oil marketing companies, they have simplified the whole tendering procedure. They have improved their storage infrastructure. They have improved their the ethanol receiving infrastructure, and then the transportation also, because a lot of ethanol needs to be transported. So they have started this transporting through railway rakes. So on the transportation front also, they are improving their infrastructure and overall logistics. So, and the DFPD, which they brought the interest subvention scheme in 2018 for sugar based. Then when we calculated that we have to blend for 20%, we need 1,000 crore liter of ethanol. So we came to conclusion that by sugar sector alone, we cannot achieve this target. So in 2020, we decided that maize and other food grains like rice from FCI can also be used to make ethanol, so that this ethanol achievement of 20% target can be achieved. So looking with our preparedness, and then we brought this scheme also, interest subvention scheme of including grain based in January 21. And lot of applications have come, like what you are telling, some serious and some non-serious, because we need a capacity of around 1,500 crore liter, so that about 1,350 crore liter ethanol can be produced, including for the potable and as well as the other uses. So we need around 1,500 crore liter capacity, and already around 730 crore liter capacity is there. So the 770 liter crores capacity additionally required. And whatever we approved from that, around 1,700 crore liter projects we have approved, and we need only 770 crore liters. So there are enough serious players who will bring this capacity. One round we had reviewed in July, August months, and we found that about projects of around 900 crore liter capacity, they are in various stages of implementation. We had a meeting with the technology providers, equipment providers, suppliers, and they also assured us that in next 4 years, they will be able to supply the required machinery and equipment. So that this, we had regular meetings with the banks, state governments, project proponents, and whatever difficulties are coming from various like fields, then we like to address those issues. So this is a regular phenomena. And then on the basis of our preparedness, when Honorable Prime Minister reviewed this program in May 19, so after that he announced that from on the Environment Day, 5th June, that we should now achieve 20% blending by 2025. So now the policy and the roadmap, everything is clear and put in public domain. Everybody is knowing that like next year we will achieve 10% blending, then 12%, and how we will achieve 20% by 2025. What is the capacity addition program year-wise? And we are on track as far as the capacity program is concerned. Then OMC, they also have issued some EOIs for capacity addition. They also want some, so in there, this EOI also, a lot of applications have come, and as I said, we require only 800 crore liter capacity. I think more than 1,000 crore liter capacity applications have come in the EOI of OMCs also. So as far as this capacity thing is concerned, it is on track and on time. So we don't feel as of now that there is a need to reopen a window for inviting applications, because already there are so many applications. People are in various stages of implementation. So we don't feel that it should be done immediately. So then this overall, like next year we will be achieving 10% blending. And this sugar, the other question was what should be the ratio of sugar and ethanol, the sugar and grain-based feed stocks. So we hope that about 60 crore liter ethanol sugar needs to be diverted. So out of the total requirement of 1350 crore liter ethanol, which is required for blending as well as from for other purposes. So roughly 50% or 52, 53% will come from sugar sector and 48% will come from the grain sector. So this is as per the estimation that this will be like the criteria. And if we put 60-70 crore liter ethanol is still imported from the other countries by the chemical industries. So that can also be like, once the capacity comes up and prices become more competitive, then the chemical industry can also buy ethanol which is locally produced. So I think then further capacity will be required. Then there are from 24 we will be starting like dispensing, the oil marketing companies will be starting dispensation of flex fuel, this E100 fuel. Like then the road transport ministry and DHI, they are also in the process of like bringing the flex fuel vehicles by 24. Then the effective blending, like in Brazil, the benchmark blending is 27%, but their actual blending due to flex fuel vehicles is around 45%. So in India also, this 20% blending effectively will increase as the number of flex fuel vehicles will increase. Likewise, there are the experiments going on for blending with diesel and how the jet fuel can also be, ethanol can be used in blending with jet fuel. So these are the like research stage, and whenever their developments come in those fields, then further the requirement of ethanol will increase. So as far as feedstock is concerned, there is not an issue. We have kept FCI rice intentionally because if due to any natural calamity in any area, the feedstock is not there, then this, because we have sufficient food grains with us. So this feedstock is there to help investors, to help the distilleries to have the feedstock, and they can run their distilleries throughout the year, and their investment will not go waste or something like if there is any problem due to natural calamity or anything in that particular area. So this is a program which is designed in such a way that the interest of the investors, banks, and oil marketing companies, they are protected. We have designed a tripartite agreement also, so that financing in this sector, which was not happening earlier, and with this tripartite agreement, this is going to happen fast. And the already equipment manufacturers, they have received sufficient orders with them, and their capacity is almost booked for years to come. So we are hopeful that the 20% blending roadmap will be achieved as per the targets. So this is all about. If anything I missed, any questions, then I can reply. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that reassuring presentation that you made. Sir, I have a submission with regard to the inter-subvention scheme. I understand that, we are quite comfortable with regard to the supplies that we are supposed to make. And you also said that, at this point of time, you may not consider opening the window. My submission here is, if there are a few players who are really serious and who feel that they have been left out of this program, I think we should consider, opening up the window for, in a limited way for those people who have that pre-qualification approval from OMCs. As you yourself pointed out, we are not just looking at E20, we are looking at a program much beyond E20, especially when the flexi engines come. The need for ethanol is going to go up, and also by that time, if the sustainable aviation fuel program also in place, you require a lot more ethanol for the sustainable aviation fuel also. Keeping that in mind, I think it is good to open up the window for a short while to really see that some of the serious players who are trying to get in are accommodated.
See, the one thing is that already the serious players, there are sufficient serious players which are we have applied, and their projects are in various stages of implementation.
Yes.
Second, there is a subsidy limitation also. We don't have unlimited subsidy because finance approves. There is a limit. And third, we are talking up to 2025. All the flex fuel vehicles requirement and further ethanol requirement will come after 2025. So the capacity which is planned for 2025, those projects are in place. They are in various stages of implementation. Second most important thing, if oil marketing company does an agreement with anyone, lot of people are coming that they don't want interest subsidy. They want that this agreement can be done and the bank can finance their projects. So they don't want interest subsidy. So many people are like in that type of also, okay, interest subvention is not required, but the clarity on other side can help them to like bring their projects. So for anything, if your raw material is assured and bank loan isn't assured and the supply is assured, so that project is always viable. With interest subvention, the viability will improve. So that is the thing. So that is why so many people have applied in oil marketing companies frame of UOI, that without interest subvention also they can like go ahead with the projects. So this we will take when the next round of review will take place in the month of November, December. Then we will have a view whether the capacity coming is as per the requirement. If there will be any deficiency, then we will take a call at that time.
Sir, thank you very much. Before we get into the concluding session, I have one or two questions for Dr. Ravindra ji. You talked about sustainable energy solutions. Now, all through the discussion, when we were looking at advanced biofuels, it becomes very important that the new technologies that we are talking about, we have a control on the capex and the operating expenses. Now, at this point of time, the advanced biofuel program cannot really take off without the government kind of a support. So what are the kind of initiatives from the industry and especially from Praj to bring down the capex and OPEX, so that people can think of 2G, and people are also talking about bolt-on technology, whether it is bolt-on 2G or 1.5G. And I think, we have a lot of resources that are available in the sugar industry, which we need to capitalize on. So with regard to this, I would like to hear your views. Get unmute.
Sorry about that. So I think it's a great question. Every review meeting, every discussion, this keeps coming. How do we nosedive the capex? Now, there is no silver bullet to be taken here. But I think the answer to this is all options are on table, whether it is technology enhancement, technology breakthroughs, newer variants of microbes, new yeast, better pre-treatment equipment, lowering the processing cycle, lowering the fermentation cycle. And you'll appreciate, sir, that this is industries at the phase of, or this technology is at the phase of takeoff. I have been in the renewable space for over 3 decades. I have seen the early days of wind, early days of solar, where PPAs and tariffs used to be out of the roof compared to what they are today. So I think there is no one straight answer to your question, but let me just say that all angles are being explored, whether it is optimization of hardware, enhancement in technology, standardization of processes, standardizing spare parts, reducing the processing cycles, and obviously the economies of scale will take a long way in taking it closer to the financial viability. So that's by and large the answer. It may not be on the bullseye, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, one have to really look at taking a biorefinery approach. You start with a certain feedstock and then looking at not just the fuel, but also looking at biomaterials, biochemicals, and the byproduct valorization, bringing down the cost of enzymes. All those things matter. I think that is when I think the whole program can really become sustainable and viable.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's key. Only thing is the commercialization of those byproducts and streams is also a product life cycle curve. But I think you said it, that to enhance the financial viability, byproducts have a great role to play. Yes.
Okay, sir, you're the only panelist now who is there. If you were to ask for two things for the entire ethanol blending program, start in the entire value chain, if this has to become sustainable or viable, what are the two things that you would expect from the government?
I think
government is... Oh, we have even Amit Sachdev is also there. He can also add, to that.
I think government is already doing a lot. I think it's inspiring confidence of people. But I think if there is one game changer, it is fast tracking the flex fuel introduction by the OEMs, because I think that's one thing, because the government recently inaugurated 100% ethanol pumps. So to that extent, the readiness in dispensing is there. But it seems it will take everybody to contribute. I think this is the automobile OEMs who chip in with flex fuel, and I think Honorable Gadkari ji, who has been Minister of Road Transport, has been speaking about it. And we'll see perhaps next year around same time we'll have even firmer answer to this question.
Okay. Amit ji, your reactions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think a lot of things have been done, a lot of things have been said. Lieutenant Gadkari ji announced the scrappage policy, everything else. But I think what is important is customer needs to have that requirement. Customer needs to go out and say, I want either E10 or E15 or E20, E30. It is very difficult to make that change to a flex fuel vehicle immediately. The whole fleet cannot change. So a baseline should be available across the country. See, even today as we speak, Northeast does not have the blending. I think we know that for sure. Even Jammu and Kashmir does not have. Are we ready to make that change of the whole fleet in one go? It is just not possible. I think we have to understand the limitations of the consumers also. Let the options be with the consumer. But then to have that, it will be important. A lot of infrastructure will need to change. I think Dr. Ravindra did point out the investment that will need to be made as the blending system changes. Are we looking at that blending system to happen at the pump head, as it is done in the US or Brazil? But then we will need to allow for ethanol tanks at the pump head. Is that allowed today? No, it is allowed in some cases where you have an E100 pump, as in Pune, but not across the country. So a lot of new specifications will have to be set in place. A lot of work needs to be done. I think learnings from other countries can be adopted, not copied. I think that is very, very important. We need to pick up the best, cherry pick things, move forward. And I think trade should play a vital role in this. We know that there is a roadmap to achieve that E20, the E20 blend and beyond. India needs more and more ethanol. Trade needs to play a bigger role in this. Infrastructure will continue to be made as things happen starting today, which can be used if trade is not there later on, does not matter. But trade would continue starting today, infrastructure would get made today itself. Dr. Ravindra wants to say something.
Yeah.
No, so I just wanted to add one quick point that, while we are talking about readiness of industry, government policies, and so on, if we incentivize our consumers with the differential pricing or pass on the benefit of higher ethanol blend and the savings therein to consumers, there will be a stronger traction from end users. I think that can be the shot in the arm that can work.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
That is what happened in the US. Why are people shifting from E0 to E10 and today from E10 to E30? Because there is a price difference. The money saved goes into their pockets. It is their decision to use that higher blend. And then moving on to E50 or E85. The E85 is going to cost much more, for sure. E85 meaning the flex fuel vehicle is going to cost much more. So if there is a saving to the consumer, why not?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think, overall, the 2-hour session has been wonderful. There has been a lot of light thrown on the EBP program, where we are heading, what are the kind of shortcomings in the program and how we can address it as we move forward. So very clear views have been presented by all speakers. On my behalf, I would like to thank each one of you for giving that valuable input and participating in the discussion. I don't have anything more to add at this point of time, and I think we are on time to hand it over to the organizers. Mr. Jaidev Sharma, it's over to you now.
Yes, sir. So we are thankful to Shri Subodh Singh ji for sparing his time to listen to us and for his address too. We are also grateful to YBR sir for moderating the session so well, and also thankful to Dr. Ravindra ji, Dr. Sangeeta ji, and Mrs. Amit Sadeva for their great insights, and last to our participants for their patient listening. Thank you to all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.